The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all the ships at sea. Thank you so much for joining us on another exciting Page One Power webinar. In these shows, we typically explore a single topic relevant to the online search marketing community, including your questions from the audience. And today is no different. Our topic centers around local rankings and search visibility with our good friends at Whitespark, the web's #1 local tools, software, and citation services provider. Please follow us on Twitter at @PageOnePower and follow the global webinar conversation with this webinar's hashtag P1PWebinar. But before we dive into it, let's introduce our panel, shall we? As always, I am Colin Eggleston, your friendly neighborhood marketing events coordinator here at Page One Power. And joining us today is Darren Shaw, president and founder of Whitespark. Thanks so much for joining us today, Darren.
Thanks a lot for having me, Colin.
Absolutely. We're very happy to have you. I'm very excited to be talking with you today as we kind of learn more about local citations and kind of, getting your business's visibility going in the local space, which is so highly competitive. So without further ado, let's dive into it. But first, I want to remind the audience that we will be taking questions at the end of the broadcast. So please submit your questions throughout the webinar. So with that being said, Darren, please take it away.
All right, thank you. So today we're going to talk about how you can improve your Google rankings with business listings, specifically your local business ranking. So ranking in either the local pack results, so that's be like the 3 results with a little map above it, or what's called a local finder, and you get to that if you click on more places or more results at the bottom of that local pack. So just a quick little thing about me and Whitespark. So I've been doing web development and SEO since 1996. Well, didn't really get into the SEO until the early 2000s. And I've been doing local search since about 2007, 8-ish. I speak at conferences. I speak at MosCon Local, Search Love, a lot of the local U events. I write about local search. I recently took over the local search ranking factors from David Mim. So, and we're just about to publish a brand new local search ecosystem, also working with David Mim on that. So a little bit about my company, Whitespark. So we have software and services for local search. We have a service where we will find all of your incorrect citations and clean them up. We do a bunch of enterprise consulting. We work with some major brands like the Intercontinental Hotel Group, Staples, the Carlson Residor Hotel Group. Those are some examples. We do a citation building service. So you can come to us and we'll just get you listed on a bunch of sites. We have a software system called the Local Citation Finder, which will analyze all of your business listings that are out there, compare them with competitors, show you opportunities. We have a really great local rank tracking system that's about to get a huge release. And we have a review acquisition system as well, which sends out emails and asks for reviews. It kind of funnels people. If the happy people get sent to the review sites, unhappy people get sent to feedback. So that's just a little bit about what we do. But let's talk about citations. What is a citation, a local citation? So a citation is a mention of your name, address, and phone number somewhere out on the web. Typically, you can find them on places like Yelp. So if you look at this one here, this is a listing for All Pro Lawn Care. It mentions their name, address, and phone number. So you can see their name, address, and phone number. So Google uses this sort of as it's like your thumbprint to be able to identify that this is a page. This page is talking about this specific business, and so it was really built. The local search algorithm was built like way back in 2007, 2008, and when so many of these small businesses didn't have websites. So how was Google supposed to rank them in those local results if they didn't have websites? And so this is where this concept of your citation came from. It's identifying this web entity, typically by the name, address, and phone number, and also the website can come into play there as well. Here's another example, a structured citation on Yellow Pages. It's got the name, address, and phone number. So there are a ton of these sites out there. So obviously, you got your core search engines. I don't generally consider Google a citation, but these are the top opportunities to make sure that you're listed on. So the numbers for 5, 6, and 7. These are the primary data aggregators across the US, and then important sites. So we have this list on our website. These are the most important sites to be listed on. We also have a Canadian, US, and Australian list on that same URL below. So if you're looking for, where should I get listed, this is your resource. So there's the ones that you get listed on sites where you can submit your business, and they list, the whole site is around that, like listing businesses and getting reviews and that kind of thing, like a Yelp or Yellow Pages. Those are called structured citations. An unstructured citation is a mention of your business appearing on, sites like blogs. So let's say some blog mentions your business and they mention the name, address, and phone number, and Google can tie that. Newspaper sites, so if your business gets featured in the news. Wikis, other businesses' websites. So let's say you have a partnership with some other business and they mention you. Basically, any other website that's not a business listing directory site, we call that an unstructured citation. So here's an example. This is a newspaper site, the Seattle Times. They mention the Wallet of the Carpenter. They talk about their address and phone number. So this is, a newspaper site isn't a business listing directory. It just mentions businesses. So as you can imagine, and the same thing with links, anything that you can just go and submit your link, it's not going to carry as much value as sort of a mention like this, where you get a link. An editorially given link on like a newspaper site would be more valuable than a link directory, for example. So these unstructured citations are highly valuable. Here's another example of an unstructured citation in an online magazine. So this is Duchess Bake Shop. It's in my city here in Edmonton. They get mentioned a ton. Google's able to sort of connect these two, even though in this particular article in the magazine, they don't mention the business's name, address, and phone number. Google's still smart enough to notice, okay, it's got a unique name, Duchess Bake Shop. It's in Edmonton. It knows that this is a citation and will give credit to Duchess Bake Shop's local listing. So why do we care about this? Why are citations important? There's a number of reasons why they are important and they help your rankings at Google. Well, number one, they give your business verification and trust at Google. So, it basically validates that this is a real business that actually exists. There's a lot of spam in Google Local, and so when you get all of these mentions, Google's like, okay, we have discovered a new business. It becomes an entity in their knowledge graph, and it's a business they can verify and trust, especially if you claim the listing. They also demonstrate your prominence to Google. So the more mentions you have out there, the more prominent you look. And so Google wants to rank the most prominent, best businesses. And so the more of these you have, the better you generally rank. So it's important to get lots of them, but there are diminishing returns at the tail end of it. So you want to get covered in all the most important sites, but once you kind of get into the rest of them, you're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of quality. So you could keep going into the thousands of citations, but you kind of get 90% of the way there once you get to the top 50, top 80 maybe. They're also relatively easy and inexpensive SEO tactic that any business can do. So it's you get it done and it doesn't cost very much money, or if you're doing it in-house, it doesn't take very much time. You just find all these business directories. You can start with our big list and just go to them and submit your business. It's something that you can, it's like a quick win that any business can do. So it's a great aspect of doing business listings, dealing with your business. It's worth the investment. It's also noteworthy that you don't even have to have a website. So a lot of businesses that don't have websites can still benefit from business listing management. So for example, this is a business, Total Lawn Care of South Florida. They rank #1. They don't even have a website link on their Google listing. So, and I looked them up, they don't think they have a website. So it is possible to get good local rankings without even having a website. Also, you can be a home-based business and still rank in the local results just fine. So if the directions link isn't there, then they've hidden their address in Google My Business. And so this one here with the hidden address, they're still ranking perfectly fine. So you don't need to have a storefront or whatever. So this basically opens it up to any kind of business. So it's important to know where Google is getting these business listings from. So look at this business here. the business didn't go to Google and create this listing. It's a listing that Google found and put into its database. So it's a business that Google identified, put it into its database, and now you'll see that it has this business link. That means Google, the business owner hasn't claimed their listing. So where did this come from? How did Google get this particular business in its database? Well, it's getting data from a ton of places. David Mim did an amazing presentation on this, like a Whiteboard Friday on this, probably 2013, maybe 2012, 2013, I think. So he did this great Whiteboard Friday on Moz. Just sort of shows you where all this business listing data comes from. So Google's, if you look at the thing in the middle, that's like, this is like a sort of merging database of all of this data. So Info Group, Newstar, and Axiom are primary data aggregators in the United States. So they are gathering business data from all kinds of providers, and they aggregate it, they validate it, and so that is a really important source of business listing data across the U.S. The little building there is government sources. So Secretary of State, when anyone registers a business, Google has access to all of that data, so they can see all of that business registration data. Mapmaker doesn't exist anymore, so forget that. The other one's the little car is Google Street View. The little guy with the tie is business owner. So sometimes people go direct. So Google's collecting all this data, and then they're also scraping the web. So they're scraping the web all the time. They're scraping all these business listing sites. They're scraping all the websites. They're scraping newspaper sites, and they find and identify these business entities. So then they end up in this sort of chart, and they get all of this extra data associated with them. So the name, address, phone number, and then these are the different sources of that data. So the more sources you have, like however far you can build that to the right, sort of the more validation Google has that this is a real business, and the more you have, the more prominent you look. So this is where sort of all this business data comes from. So how do you find sites to submit your business? So let's say you're like, all right, I'm convinced. I think I'm gonna go out and work on some business listings, some citations. How do you find them? Well, one place, of course, you can start with these quality lists. We have that list on our website. That is the top US citation sources. You can access that for free, just at that URL. Canadian, US, Australian, of course. The second way, so like once you've exhausted that, is you can run some searches at Google. You can find really great industry-specific and city-specific sites. So, for example, if you just type in something like Houston Business Directory, then you will find a whole bunch of sites that are specific to Houston. So the cityofhouston.com. If you live in Houston, you have a business in Houston, this is a great one that you'd want to get listed on. So little searches like Houston Business Directory can go a long way to finding them. If you are in a specific industry, so if let's say you're a lawn care business, you could type in lawn care business directory or lawyer business directory, dentist business directory, and you'll find these industry-specific sites that you want to get listed on as well. And then another way to find them is to research your competitor citation. So we have a handy tool that makes that really easy. It's called the Local Citation Finder. What you'll do is you type in a key phrase. So for example, I'm going to search New Orleans for lawn care. And what you end up with is this list of businesses. So we look at the local finder for the results. We grab the top 10 ranking businesses, and then we find all of their citations. So if we combine all of the sites that these 10 businesses are listed on, we found 178 different citation sources that are out there. So here's a list of them. You're going to find all kinds of sites. So we found this Lawn Love, that's interesting. Businessfinder.nola.com. So these are all these different sites that you're going to find in the Local Citation Finder, and then some of them will have a link just direct to submit your business. So this is a great way of finding all these. And you can also do a comparison in the tool. So once you find them, you can add your business. So if these are all the businesses that were found in the pack and your business is in there, you can add it, and then you can do this comparison. You can see which of these businesses was listed on which ones. And so this is a handy way of just sort of identifying these citation opportunities. So if you see that, for example, on Manta, all of these businesses are listed, but you weren't, then you could get a listing there. Or this is a good one, Angie's List. Well, that's a good opportunity because 4 of the top ranked businesses are on it and I'm not. Citation building best practices. So there's a few things to keep in mind as you start doing this work, and so I'm going to go through those now. Number one, make sure you don't just find a site and submit your business. Always look to make sure you're not already listed. So for example, I'm going to search for the business name, Precision. Let's say I'm building citations for Precision Landscape Services. I go to yellowbook.com. First, I'm going to search and see if they're already on there. So I run the search, and oh, look at that, they are already listed. So in this case, I would probably claim the listing and update it. I did a Whiteboard Friday about this back in March 2016. This is how to find all these NAP variations. So for example, if I'm doing this, I just type Precision Landscape Services. I might find this listing, but I also am known as Precision Landscape Inc. Or I used to be called Bob's Lawn Care. You know, maybe the name was changed over time. And so before you actually run these searches, it's good to find all the variations. And so in this Whiteboard Friday, I talk about how you can find the old variations of like any old names that were used, any old phone numbers that were used, any old addresses that were used. So I can find all of those, and then when I'm doing this pre-research before I submit my business, I actually search all of those different variations. So it's really important to dig those up before you start building citations. In this Whiteboard Friday, which I don't have time to get into all the nitty-gritty details about that, we'll walk you through it. When you're building citations, use a domain-based email, assuming you have a website. So if your business is bobslawn.care.com, then make sure your email is info@bobslawn.care or bob@bobslawn.care.com. This is because it will give your listing more trust on the specific site. So if you have to contact them about anything, so if I go and I'm trying to claim a listing just using a Gmail, the site might say, well, we don't know if you're actually authorized to use that. So using your domain-based emails tells all these sites that you are in fact connected to the company. Select the right categories and select as many as possible on every single citation. This is a huge opportunity to make sure that as Google is finding all these listings for you out there, that you are optimizing your categories. Basically, think of every category as another association of, oh, this business is related to this topic. And so these categories are super valuable. So some people, when they build out a listing, they might just select the first category and go on. But find every single category, and some sites will just let you keep adding as many as possible. Some sites will have 3. Make sure that you choose them all. Anything that is slightly related. So they also do outdoor decorating. Great, I'm going to choose that too. Really build out these citations. Add as much information as possible on every site. So don't just put in the basic name, address, and phone number and think you're done with it. The more information you can provide, it's like you're feeding Google more information about your business, making you more relevant for a wider range of terms. And so you really want to fill out every field on some of these sites. So for example, look at this one here. Look at all these different categories I was able to select up in the top right there. My business description, I want to be long, I want to be detailed, I want to talk about all the different things that we do. So here's an example of that. I'm trying to get my stuff in there. I want Google to find that we also do paving stones. We also do waterless lawn sod clean and seal, all these kinds of things, so that if someone's searching those, Google can associate that information with my business entity in the knowledge graph. Fill out the hours of operation. This is an interesting one that came up in the local search ranking factors. One of the contributors found that businesses were getting filtered. A while ago, Google released an update called the Possum Update, and businesses were getting filtered out of results as a result of that. And so adding business hours for a whole bunch of locations actually made them pop back up. And so it's important to have your business hours in there so Google knows. Add payment methods, as much information as possible. If you got photos and videos, add them to the listings. This business here added 271 photos to their Yelp listing. Now this is great for SEO. It will help Google have more content for your business entity, but it's also such a huge conversion factor. You get an actual customer that lands on this page, they can see your work, they can look through it. You're going to get more phone calls, you're going to get more clicks to your website, people will be engaged. And so if you have the information, put it on your listings. If you don't have any photos or videos, think about getting some. They really are valuable, and make sure you get them on any listing that will accept them. You should claim your listings to lock them down. So what this means is if I have a listing out there, let's say on Yellowbook, and it's not claimed, Yellowbook is constantly gathering new business listing data from a whole bunch of sources. So they're getting them from the data aggregators. They're getting it, maybe they're doing their own crawls. They are, somehow hooked up with Yext. Yext is giving them data. You want to claim the listings to lock them down. So if you claim a listing, it kind of becomes totally locked, and the website will trust what you've put in there because you now own that listing. So any site that offers you the option to claim it, make sure you do it. And that might mean that often you can just claim it by email. So you claim this listing, you'll get an email, you click the verification link, and now you own that listing. Another way is by phone verification. There's about 8 to 10 sites that will do phone verification. So they'll phone your business, you answer it, and then you enter a PIN on the screen. So wherever you have the option, claim these listings, and then you can protect them from getting updated again. So here's an example here. This MA Landscape has a listing on Yelp. You can see on the top right it says unclaimed, and then there's a link on the bottom right to claim it. Keep all of your citation info organized in a spreadsheet. So we have a template for that. Isn't that handy? So you could use this template. You could download this at that URL. And you're going to put in information like, here's the URL to the site, here is my username and password on that site, here's my status. Your status could be it's either updated, pending, like I submitted, or the listing is live. You've got a listing URL, so that's the link to the listing, the type of listing, and any comments. So this is a handy little template you can use to keep track of all of your business listings. You're going to want this later, especially in a company where people are coming and going. You kind of want to have a centralized document that keeps track of all this, because especially if you claim those listings, if you've claimed them and then someone loses the username and password, or they left the company, then you kind of have a bit of a hassle trying to unclaim them so you can get them back. Don't hire dirt cheap citation building services. There are a whole bunch of them out there, and they're dangerous. Look at this guy. This guy on Fiverr will build 1,250 Google Map local citations for SEO for only $38.70. So this is going to be terrible. This will probably hurt your SEO a lot more than it would help. So don't do anything like that. They will probably submit incorrect information, and you seriously do not need 1,200 listings out there. You need 100. You're good if you get on the important sites. All the rest of that stuff is just garbage. If you don't want to build citations yourself, we do have a service. I'm not here to sell. I'm here to teach. But we do have a service. If you're interested, you can check that out. Common citation building questions. So this is just some of the things that come up often when people are thinking about building citations. So let's say you have a home-based business. You don't want to put your name, address, and phone number all over the web. What do? How do you build citations? Well, you're a little bit screwed in this case to some degree. There are maybe 12 sites, 15 sites that you can add a listing and then hide your business address. Google, of course, is one of them. You can hide your listing. You hide your address on Google. Yelp, you can hide your address on Yelp. You can hide your address on Facebook. So there's a whole bunch of sites out there that you can create a listing and hide your address. The problem is that you leave out so much of the citation profile that you're not really getting the full benefit of citation. So your options are either to stop at that like 15 sites and say, okay, well, those are all the citations I can build, or you can keep going, and on all the other sites, you could just use your address. It's your home-based address. If you run a home-based business, you probably don't serve customers out of your home anyways. You probably go to them. Let's say you're a lawn care company, for example. Then in that case, you don't really have to worry about people showing up at your house. And so if you want the SEO benefit of building those citations on Yellowbook or some other site that doesn't really get a lot of real human traffic, people aren't really using these sites to find businesses, you could just let your address go up there. If you're really concerned about privacy, then you kind of need to get an office. But if you want the full SEO benefit, I recommend hiding it on the sites that you can hide it, and then just letting it go on all the other sites, just putting the address out there, and then you'll get all the citations and get the SEO benefit of that. So let's say you're a home-based business and you're like, well, I don't want to see my address out on the web. Could I use a virtual office? The answer is, yeah, it's okay to use a virtual office on your citations. It's part of Google's guidelines that if you have a virtual office, you're not eligible for a listing in Google. So you're going to kill yourself with that. But that said, even though it's in the guidelines that you're not supposed to do it, every single vertical, especially in the legal space, you find people using virtual offices all over the place, and they are ranking just fine with them. So it's almost like you can get away with it until Google finds out, and then Google might say, hey, you're not eligible for listing, and they'll take it down. So lots of people play with that. They sort of play with the rules a little bit. They create virtual offices, and they build their business listings out with a virtual office. This is often the case. Let's say you're a lawyer that's located in one city, but you want to get a listing in every other city, then they'll create these virtual offices. So I don't love virtual offices. I would much prefer to see you use something like an actual office. Just rent a closet or something in a small place. And you have less of a target on your back for this, because Google can identify virtual offices generally by so many other businesses at the same address, and so that's how they find them. Is it okay to use call tracking numbers? This question comes up all the time. You want to see, okay, well, am I getting any return on my Yellow Pages listing? Or let's say you're doing a paid program with Yellow Pages or Yelp or whatever. If you put a call tracking number on there, you'll be able to know how many calls you get. The problem with that is it creates a citation consistency issue, which I'll get into. But there are two places where I'm comfortable with using call tracking numbers. Number one is your website, because most of these call tracking services, like CallRail, for example, that's one that I use and love. It does what's called dynamic number replacement. So on your website, when Googlebot hits it, they just see a regular number. But when a human hits it, it does a JavaScript number replacement. So the real number is actually there in the code, but then JavaScript replaces that on the front end with the call tracking number. So anyone that calls the number on your website, you'll be able to track that through the CallRail system, but Google sees your real number. The other place where it's totally fine to use a call tracking number, and this will blow some people's minds, is on your Google listing. And so you can do it on your Google listing as long as you also add your real number as the secondary number. Google actually has 4 fields, I think, for phone numbers, for alternate numbers. You can add these alternate numbers. And so if you make your primary number the call tracking number, you can see how many calls you get directly from either Google local pack results, the knowledge panel, local finder. You can actually track all the calls you get from your Google listing. But it's really important that you add your real number as the secondary alternate number, so that Google can still keep a connection with all of your business listings out there. You don't want to sort of sever the relationship between all of your listings from your Google listing. So that is one place where I think it's okay, as long as you add that secondary number. Do you need to vary the business description on every site? So this question comes up a lot. It's like, well, I don't want duplicate content out there, so on every single site that I submit my business, I'm going to write a slightly different description. You totally don't need to do that. That's a waste of your time. You can use the same description, because 99.7% of all businesses use the same description on every website. It's not hurting anybody. It's perfectly fine. Do you get a boost if you do it? I don't know. Maybe. It's a lot of effort. You could do it if you wanted, but I don't think it's going to have a huge impact. So let's talk about this idea of citation consistency. So over time, a business, let's say this business has been in business for 15 years, they might change their name over time. They might move offices, like they used to be here and now they're here. Some businesses move multiple times. They might have different phone numbers. Like maybe when the business first started, they used the business owner's cell number. That was actually my case. The business line was my cell line for the longest time, while I was mostly just a freelancer. And so over time, these things change. Your primary business information changes. Lawyers do it all the time with their business names. Every time a new partner joins the firm or leaves the firm, they change their name. So it used to be McDonald and Smith. Now it's McDonald and Pringle, and so it just changes all the time. So This stuff can hurt your rankings because basically Google now doesn't associate these listings that are out there with your business, and you don't get credit for it. And it also creates a whole bunch of what we call citation confusion. Google doesn't know if it can trust your business data, and so if it can't trust that it's giving out the right phone number or the right address for this business, it doesn't like surfacing it high up in the results because that creates a poor user experience. So these things can hurt your rankings, and you want to make sure that you find all of these incorrect listings and get them fixed up. It's a job. It takes a while to do this. One thing to keep in mind is that there are a lot of, we'll call them citation inconsistencies, that aren't that big of a deal. So you don't need to worry about minor differences like capitalization, or let's say the word street is abbreviated on some of your listings and it's not abbreviated on others, or Northeast is abbreviated, suite versus abbreviated suite, floor versus abbreviated floor, zip codes with the extra 4 digits at the end versus not, phone number formatting, those kinds of things, you don't need to stress about them. They are, because what happens is Google normalizes business data that comes in. So whenever you get, whenever it finds a business listing out there, it runs it through its address normalizer, which converts them all into one single address. And so it can pick up on these variations and say, okay, this is the canonical address for this business. So you don't need to worry about those kinds of things. We have an article on our website. You can read about this. This is all the things that are totally acceptable. So these variations are fine. And so if you're wondering about what consistency issues you need to worry about and which ones you don't, this article in our resources section is very handy for that. So when you are doing this, let's say, how do you sort of do a citation cleanup job? We always start with what I talked about earlier, which is finding your NAT variations. You want to find any variations out there of your name, address, and phone number. So you can reference this Whiteboard Friday. It's only 6 minutes and 28 seconds of your time, and you can kind of learn the process for that. Then you want to go to each of the sites and search for all of the variations. So once you know the different phone numbers, the different names, the different addresses, you generally don't search by address, but the different names and phone numbers, you go and you search and you see if you find any duplicates. So for example, in this case on YP, Fox Landscaping happens to have 3 addresses or three different versions. So we might want to claim these 2 here. See how they have the same phone number? So these are totally duplicates. 1 and 2 are totally duplicates. This could just be a different location for the same business. Once you find them all, you want to claim and update one of them and then remove the other ones. So how do you do that? Every site has its different rules and different ways about getting around this. Sometimes you submit a support request. Sometimes you claim the listing and then mark it as a duplicate. Every site is different. Danny Owens put together this amazing citation cheat sheet, how to add, edit, and remove citations on basically our top 50 list. So this resource for you is fantastic. You will want to check it out. I didn't put a link, but just Google it, Pigzilla citation cheat sheet. You'll find it. So this thing is free. It's just a free resource on her blog, and it'll give you the instructions for every single site on how to add, edit, and remove different citations. If you didn't want to do all of that laborious work yourself, we do have a service for that. You can order citation audit and cleanup and have our expert team run by Yaroslav Zhekov, who is probably the most brilliant mind in citations and business listings. He runs that team, and so we can do it for you. All right, that's pretty much it. That's the whole presentation. So Colin, I think he's going to present a poll question, and then we can get into some Q&A.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Darren. That is just a wealth of information there. As someone I've personally done some citation building and for clients and whatnot, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work keeping all those things straight. That's for sure. So my hats off to you and your team for sure.
Oh, thanks.
So let's go ahead and get the poll going here. We just have one poll question today. It's a very simple one here. Let me just go ahead and launch it. All right, so the poll question is, would you like to know more about what Whitespark or Page1 Power can do for your business? So just please let us know, and I'll just kind of let this hang open here for about a minute or so as our responses kind of flow in. Citation building is so important for so many types of businesses. There's just so much to learn. So I mean, even with today's presentation, it is such a good start to that. But there's just so much to build on top of that knowledge. So it's a great field, very very interesting field of study there. Great. So just let the couple more. We're at about the 40 seconds. 50 seconds mark here, so we'll just let that run out up to a minute before we jump back into our own Q&A question, Q&A session here as well. All right, excellent. So that's the minute mark here. I'll go ahead and close that. Thank you everybody for responding to the polls. Darren, I had a couple of questions kind of come to my mind as I was listening there, but more importantly, we have a couple of questions from our audience. And everybody in the audience, please feel free to submit your questions now through the webinar panel as well. We'd love to hear from you. Two questions here that I'm looking at. So the first one is from Dustin. So Dustin asks, will having a large number of categories, say 15, make your business seem less focused and thus less likely to rank for your primary category? Let's see. So yes, that's basically that question. So what do you think, Darren? How would that affect a business?
So on all of your citations, no, the more categories, the better. If you're talking about specifically your Google listing, then this is the concept of, it's called category dilution. So for example, let's say we'll stick with the lawn care thing. Let's say I do landscaping services, but then I also do outdoor paving, etc. So the more stuff that I add to that, the concept is that it might actually dilute my ranking ability for the main category. That theory, I think it might have been my fault. I might have posited that at some point, and it's recently been debunked directly to me by Google. So the answer is no. It's not a thing. The reason why I thought it might be a thing was because I had seen cases where businesses had completely dropped out of the local pack. So for example, they had, let's say it was a business that did office supplies. Or no, it was the other way around actually. It was a business that did, let's say it was a lawyer. And then all of a sudden, somehow, the category office supplies got added to their listing and they disappeared. They took out office supplies, boom, they popped back up. So that made me have this idea that you could dilute your ability to rank if you have a whole bunch of slightly unrelated categories. My new theory, since getting sort of corrected on this by Google, is more of a concept of category confusion. So as long as your categories are all kind of within the parent category, they're all related, then that makes sense. But you might hurt things if you say you're a jack of all trades. You're a lawyer, but you're also a plumber, and you're also a dentist. Like no one does that. If you're in a whole bunch of really weird, random categories, that could cause problems. And so what I would recommend you do is you add categories one by one carefully on your Google listing. As long as they're all related, don't worry about it. But if you're trying to do anything that's a little bit, outside of the realm of what your business is primary category is, what they're supposed to be doing, then you might want to hesitate with that. And then you might want to think, well, do we create a whole new business entity for this other arm of the business? Do we make a new name, address, phone number for that particular arm? Because they are very separate services. In that case, you might want to consider it.
And that's such a tricky area, because if I'm putting my black hat on and I want to really kind of goose my rankings and really just kind of skyrocket up, I would think maybe a way to abuse that would be like, let's say if I'm a lawn carer or something like that, maybe a way to abuse that would be to put my lawn care business under 30, 40, 50 different categories that are just kind of maybe popular categories in my area, but have nothing to do with lawn care. Do you think that might have something to do with that kind of interaction?
Yeah, it could be like a spam signal for Google, which is
Yeah.
what's hurting. Yeah, I think there's some potential validity to that. That could be their angle. I don't know. You don't get much out of them.
Right, I know, right? If anybody listening, if they have a direct line to Google, let us know.
Yeah.
So next question here is from Yev. So they ask, we want to change our company website address from http://domain.com to https www.domain.com. Do we need to then update that in all of our citations?
Yeah, but I would say it's pretty low priority. You have more valuable SEO tactics, because obviously when you do that, you're going to 301 redirect them, which should pass any entity authority. And also consider that citations, really, Google associates a business listing and gives you that credit for it. If you think about it in terms of links, it's not the actual URL that's giving you the benefit from a citation, it's the mention of your entities, a name, address, phone number. So your URLs could be anything they want. They don't really impact your local search rankings. The links you get are nice, and so some businesses, those are the only links they have is from like business directory sites. So you'd like to update them eventually, but I would not worry too much about it. I wouldn't go and spend a lot of money on like a citation audit and cleanup package with us just to do your URLs. It's just no. The return on investment is not going to be there for you. You could slowly pick away at them. I would do them on the core sites, like maybe the aggregators, and I would do them on Google, Bing, Apple Maps. I would just do them on important sites that are prominent: Facebook, Yelp, Yellow Pages. I do it on those, but I wouldn't worry about doing all the rest of the ecosystem. It's too much low value.
Totally agree. We get this question.
Really.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, what was that?
Because of the 301 redirect, like you're going to get the benefit from those anyways, and so I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Absolutely. On the link building side of things, when we've built, hundreds of links for a client, and then the client says, "Oh, well, actually, we're doing a reformat, and we're changing our URL structure slightly," and so please go back and email all those people to change those links or something like that. And it's like, well, okay, we could definitely do that, but if we have a 301 in place and that structure is there, then that's probably the best way to go as far as ROI. So,
for sure.
Great. So Cody asks, was just contacted by a potential client who is renting operatories from an existing dentist to start her own practice out of his business location. Is this completely detrimental to both businesses, or can it be done? So kind of a temporary space, a temporary rental space. What do we think about that?
That's a tough one because of the long-term impact of that. You don't want to really go out there and spread a whole bunch of stuff out there if you know it's temporary that you're going to have to go back and fix later. It's not that bad if you go and claim all those listings. You got username and password, and so let's say later she moves to a new office, he or she moves to a new office, has her own office. Then at that point, you've got the username and password. You can just update all those listings that you've claimed. So it's not too bad. I don't think it would hurt as long. This is the big thing. They cannot share a phone number. You can have two businesses at the exact same address as long as they have a unique name and phone number. If they have the same name or if they have the same phone number and the same address, Google will think that's one business. And so you could create confusion and inconsistencies. So as long as she has her own phone number, even if that redirects to the main line where the receptionists answer, then that's viable, and you could create Google listings and listings on all citations with that temporary number, as long as with that temporary address, as long as it has a different phone number. So it's doable if you want to rank both of them. So it is doable, but you got to think about the future, like how temporary. If it's like a 6 months to a year thing, I might not even bother. I'd be like, yeah, I'm just gonna build my referral business and not worry too much about local search, or I'll do AdWords or Facebook marketing or whatever. I might not invest too much in local search until I have a permanent address.
Perfect. John asks, what benefits are there for a nationwide business with one physical location to perform the gamut of citation building? It seems more beneficial for local, regional-based businesses. So, kind of like if you're a big online retailer like Amazon, you don't have a storefront. Do we
Yeah.
want to do that local? What do we do?
So my thinking on that is, you probably don't really. First of all, your terms probably don't even trigger a local pack. So if you're typing in, like blue widgets, you probably don't get a local pack for that. So you don't really get a huge local search benefit. It is often looked at as a link building tactic. It's like, well, I want to get the links from all of these sites, and so I'm going to build citations with my one primary address, and I don't really care about the name, address, phone number aspect of it. I just want to get the links. Those links are pretty low value to begin with. Most of them are no followed, so they're not huge. So the value is very minimal. You're certainly not going to rank across the whole country in local packs with the one thing. You can really only rank in a small radius around your physical location in the local results. So this business's play is almost entirely organic. The only benefit to citation building is some pretty cheap link wins. Like you can order citations for under $200, under $100, and you can build those citations. You can order that from us. And so it's a pretty cheap, easy link win, but considering the value of those links, you kind of get what you pay for.
I saw an interesting example of someone trying to have it both ways. There's a pizza franchise. I can't remember the exact name, but I think it's called Extreme Pizza or something like that. But they have franchise locations all around the U.S., but they don't have a central. Obviously there's not like one central Extreme Pizza location. And so what they did is that in all their listings for their website, they have a subdomain for every city. And so they would list that subdomain and then the name, address, and phone number for that specific pizza restaurant in that city. But all the URLs redirected back to the central website. I thought that was kind of interesting. Kind of having it both ways.
You can actually get your listing suspended for a redirect in your Google My Business URL. That URL should not redirect. It's part of the guidelines. And I've seen listings tank because of that. Like once kind of Google picks up on it, you can actually get hurt by a redirecting URL. If you are a franchise business, every location should have a listing on Google, and then each location has the opportunity to rank within the radius around their business. So
would you
want to have every listing?
Would you recommend, like, if I started a donut shop in Boise here and I franchised it out to 10 other locations in 10 other states, would you say that we should have like one central website, or have a website for each restaurant?
One central website and unique Google My Business listings for every location, and a citation building initiative for each location.
Nice. Okay. So you're saying a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Well, yeah. Basically, every new location is a new citation building project. That's a new business entity. That's an actual physical location that now needs to get some representation in Google. And so in every city, there are dozens of businesses opening every day, every week, right? So Google's trying to pick up on those and rank them in the local pack.
Perfect. So Jim asks, we have an executive office, but some of our workers are independent contractors working out of their homes. Is it okay to list their home offices as a listing under the same business name?
It's not okay according to Google's guidelines. The big guideline is if you have a Google listing, you must service customers actually at that address. And if you don't, you have to hide the address. There is a lot of spam going on where people will use their employees' home addresses. So I'll tell you, it works. It will work. It is effective until you get caught. And if you get caught, then those listings get disappeared. So you can take the risk on yourself if you want, reap the benefits until you stop reaping the benefits. If you have all of these different listings claimed under one account, then it can actually take the whole account down. So your main business listing could also get suspended because you've done this all under one account. So it's also a thing to keep in mind if you are getting a little scammy in the local stuff.
Definitely playing with fire there for sure. Jim also asks, is it possible to list a category that is not on the Google list? They do not list our profession, insurance adjuster, claim adjuster, public adjuster, etc. So what advice on that?
I used to be able to do that back in the past. There was a Google My Business. Well, it wasn't even called. It was just called Google Local back then, Google Places. They had custom categories. You just enter anything you want. Freeform. You can't anymore. You have to pick one of Google's categories. So you have to pick whatever the closest match to your primary category is. But also keep in mind that Google is gathering this category data from all of the other sites, so Yelp, Yellow Pages, Facebook, any prominent site, especially industry-specific sites, they will pick up on that, and you'll see local packs appearing for a lot of key phrases that don't even have like a primary category as an option in Google. And so where is Google getting that from? How do they know that that's a local, that keyword has local intent? It's because they get it from all the other sites. So focus on making sure that you are listed on all the sites that do allow you to use that specific category. Like Yellow Pages has over 4,000 categories. So you can definitely get in on some of these other sites, and then Google will understand your business and properly associate those categories and keywords with your business entity.
I would also recommend to take a look at what your competitors have put down, and especially if they are ahead of you in any of the SERPs and they're just doing really well, I would just put down whatever category they are under, if they're in the same business, same industry, and just kind of go from there, even though it's not perfect. And I've been kind of bewildered by this as well. Sometimes some clients we've worked with, they're just not, the categories just aren't there for a perfect fit.
Yeah, generally, if you're a local business and you actually care about local search, your category is most likely there. The ones that are missing, it's kind of an obscure, like local search might not be your play. You might be more focused on organic. And I think that was a great suggestion, Colin, to look at your competitors. Another thing you can do is look at other cities. You know, it might not just be your local competitors. Maybe you're in a small town and you don't have enough info. But check Chicago, check Denver, check Seattle, check LA, New York. Look in these big cities at businesses that are similar to you and see what they're using for categories.
Absolutely, and that's one thing I just love about link building and citation building in general, is that there's definitely, you know, if you hit a brick wall, there's definitely a lot of options out there to kind of solve the problem there. So Daphne asks, what is the best practice when the business has multiple locations? So we kind of touched on this a little bit before, but so if it's one central business, but it serves several, discrete service areas, what are some best practices there?
So are we talking about multiple locations in the same city? Can you ask her that?
I don't know, Daphne, if you're still there, if you want to clarify that in the chat or the questions section there, please do. But that's all the question is.
There's two angles to that. So if you actually have multiple locations, like physical offices or physical brick and mortar shops or whatever, then your strategy is still the same. You are building citations for each individual location, and you're also working on reviews, and you have good location page information on your website. So each location has its own opportunity to rank in the local pack, and the proximity around the searcher is so tight these days. If I type in coffee shops, it's only going to give me the local pack around my immediate area, basically a 2-mile radius. In a 2-mile radius, I will be able to pull business. But if there's a coffee shop way on the other side of town, Google doesn't show me that. It's just too far away. It does the same thing with lawyers and everything. Even though I don't care, when I'm looking for a lawyer, I don't care if they live 2 blocks from me. I care that they're the best and most prominent in the city. But Google's proximity has really been sucked into around whoever is doing the search, especially on mobile. I think this is all related to this mobile first stuff that they are really focusing on. So if you have multiple locations in the same city, that's great. You have this opportunity to get local search traffic from all these different areas of the city. If you don't actually have physical locations, you only have one location, but you service the whole area, then we're talking about how do you rank in cities where you don't have a location, or how do you rank in different parts where you don't have a location. The way to do that is target it organically, not in the local pack, or open an office in all these different areas, but that gets expensive. So you target them organically, and we have a page on our blog that we recently launched. It's a pretty extensive, long guide of how to rank in cities or in locations where you don't have a location. So It's really about building an amazing what's called a city page. So you build this huge long page that goes into all the details about that specific city. And you can see a great example of it on, well, these are actually aren't great examples of city pages, but you can see that the effectiveness of these on pringlelaw.ca. So if you go to under like areas we serve, they only have one office in Edmonton, but we want to be bringing in search traffic from all of the surrounding cities, right? Everything in northern Alberta. And so we want to find, we want to get people coming in. So we basically made these city pages for every single area that matters. You can go too far with it. Don't do 100 pages. Like I would say, keep it 15 or less. Pick the like top most important locations, and then build these city pages but it has to be unique content. You can't just write the same content and replace the city name. Unique content for every single area, and then you can rank organically and still drive traffic for that. And so sometimes if you can get that #1 organic spot right underneath the pack, it drives as much traffic as a local pack ranking would. So it's still extremely valuable tactic.
Excellent. And that's all the questions that we have from the audience, but I do have a question just from me.
Okay.
Is let's get out our crystal balls here, and so let's look into the future. So a little bit. So one of my favorite things about a new feature in Google, they're mobile first. They're really leaning into that. If you do a search on Best Buy in Best Buy stores in Google Maps, the coolest thing ever pops up is if you zoom in close enough to the store, you get to see an internal map of the store's aisles. So you get to see, you can get that, you have the actual map of what is where in the store and all that. That I just love that. As a consumer, I would really like that. So my question is, in the future, will businesses, even maybe kind of smaller, on the smaller end, obviously smaller than Best Buy, will that be something that's important to be uploading to citations? Is like, oh, is the map of my store or my office correct? What do you think about that?
So they already have that right now. It's called like the Business View something. You can hire, like they have a network of photographers in every city that will come to your business and map out your store and sort of build like a virtual tool walkthrough of your location. And so I've seen it done for dentist offices and that kind of thing, which is great. It really gives a sense of the business, right? So it's useful as a conversion factor. It's mildly useful as a conversion factor, but I don't believe it has any impact on rankings. So, it's something Google certainly wants all that data. They want to have sort of inside data on every. They want to map the interiors as well as the exterior. So they want that data. They're trying to collect it, and that's why they have programs like this. But I don't think it's going to be any kind of make or break ranking factor in the future. It's just more of a conversion thing. If your business has a beautiful office, you want to show that off, like a dentist office. I've seen it really great for like amazing dentists. Atlanta Dental Spa, I think they got one. And so you can see that, and it helps. It's like, well, if I'm researching dentists, then I can see how great their office is and maybe I want to go there.
Perfect. And last question here as we wrap up is, we didn't really touch on it too much, but I'm curious as to how reviews, Google reviews, Facebook reviews specifically, what kind of impact are we looking at there for my rankings locally?
I think reviews are huge. I'd say they're probably even bigger than business listings. You want to be focused heavily on reviews. They validate your business. They are usually full of great content about your business. Google is using them, parsing them, interpreting them, understanding your business through all of that semantic language that's in those reviews. And you should absolutely be focused on a review strategy where you are asking every single customer for a review. And you want to build up Google first. Once you have like a good base on Google, you're kind of around the realm of like whatever the top competitors in your city have for reviews. Once you kind of get to that range, so in some industries it might just be you get to 10 and you're already tops on Google. In some industries like car dealers, you might need 150 to get to the top of the number of reviews. Once you kind of got Google squared away, because that's where a lot of people are going to see your reviews, then you need to move on to other sites, Facebook, Yelp, Yellow Pages, making sure you're getting reviews on a wide, diverse range of sites, and especially your industry-specific sites. So if you are a car dealer, you want to be listed on Dealer Rater. You want to be listed on Edmunds. So you definitely want to be getting reviews on all of these sites, because Google is scraping them and utilizing them heavily in the local search algorithm to rank businesses. It's a huge factor.
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely. Both as I think that's kind of plays in the gray area between the kind of a conversion thing where it's nice to have, but also as as kind of more hard rankings can be based off that as well. It's a very interesting area.
Conversions are amazing. Like, yeah, I can speak from experience. At one point, I've been talking about local search for so long, and we were pushing reviews for so long, but we didn't have really any on Whitespark, and so we started asking our customers for reviews. Google Whitespark right now, and you will see we have like 161 positive reviews. Let's say you're looking for a citation service and you're exploring options, right? You're like, okay, well, there's this company, there's this company, there's this company. People will Google the companies just to like look for information on them, right? You see those reviews, you read through those reviews. They're real people, real agencies that use our software or use our service, and they like it. So we do a good job, and so those reviews are such validation. So it's like, oh, I can trust them. This is the company that works. And so that applies to every business. If you have a big goose egg on your Google listings, well, you're really not doing yourself any favors. Get those reviews in there. Get those customers talking about you, and it's an SEO factor, yes, but it's a conversion factor, hell yes. You really have to have a ton of reviews out there.
Amen to that. Well, great. As we wrap up, well, thanks so much for your time today. So we'll just move on to just the parting thoughts section here. My parting thought is just basically, have all your ducks in a row. Know what your business looks like. What does your business footprint look like online compared to your competitors, and know the areas that might need some attention, and if you're missing listings or need things to be changed. But just doing that initial research is really important, and don't forget about reviews.
Yep. My parting thought, I don't think I gave it enough attention, but in the US, those data aggregators are critical because they're going to spread either correct data or incorrect data all across the ecosystem. They feed like 150 different sites combined. So making sure you're squared away on Infogroup, Axiom, Localese, and Factual is very important. So make sure you are cleaned up and listed on each of those four.
Well, Darren Shaw, thank you so much for your time today. We are so happy to have you.
Thanks a lot for having me. It was great fun.
Absolutely. And this has been another edition of the Page One Power webinar series. We're very happy you could join us today. Recordings will be made available on our website and on our YouTube channel shortly after this broadcast, along with our past webinars. Keep an eye out for more exciting webinars in the future from Page One Power. And remember, link unto others as they would link unto you.
All right.